Our next presentation comes from Sean Simpson, CIO, and Brad Iba, Manager of Business Transformation from the City of Surrey. Please welcome them.
Good morning. My name is Sean Simpson, the CIO at the City of Surrey. I've been with the city for about 23 years. One of the best things I've done into that journey was hiring my colleague here, Brad Ibbett, Manager of Business Transformation. Sorry, I like to wander. I'm going to not. There we go. I'll stand here. So in that time, we embarked on a journey, like many of you, to mature our organization in the use of data. We have thought several times about coming and presenting on it, but we wanted to wait till we had gone far enough and maybe come through the other end. And we thought now was the right time to come and share with you. And in the interest of sharing, what you're going to see today is some dashboards, of course, but really it's the materials we developed along the way, the governance, criteria, training materials, and all of that. We are more than willing to share with all of you that may help in your journey as well. So our journey really started in earnest when we had the opportunity to replace an aging system. It was Cognos at the time. And we were going to do, like many organizations, we were just going to replace it. And I came in, I got into the role, and I stopped the RFP. And I thought we might look at it a little differently. And at the time, we had never really bundled a whole bunch of data with an RFP. And so we embarked on going across the organization and looking for a number of use cases, and we landed on about 5 use cases. Use cases that included using data from just one area, use cases that leverage data from inside the organization and outside the organization. Another use case leveraged data from multiple enterprise systems. So in the end, we went to market with 5 use cases, and we did select a vendor and a product. We ended up picking the Microsoft Power Platform. And of course, at the beginning of the journey, it was primarily vendor-led. We didn't have a staff and up to governance or any of those things in place at that time. So they definitely helped us with establishing the program. Where we are today, of course, we've pared down the use of the vendor, and we only go out to them on occasion as needed. We have hundreds of dashboards there, different areas of the city. I should have said, City of Surrey, if you don't know, we are in the Lower Mainland, one of the fastest growing municipalities in Canada, 1,000 people coming to the city a month. With that growth, a lot of that growth is in youth. We are unique in that we have the largest percentage of youth for a municipality. We know we cannot keep hiring staff to meet the needs and demand on our services that this growth is necessitating. So, increasingly we want to leverage technology and data to meet that increasing demand. So with that, we did embark on this journey. What you're seeing here, of course, is a traditional image of what's above the waterline. Everybody thinks about dashboards, but in earnest, our objective was to create a data-oriented organization, one that's focused not on the technology, but on the outcomes, improving services for citizens and residents and businesses and visitors. And so to do that, we established a program that had many different components to it, everything from technology. I'm going to walk up here a little bit, then I can't see. I'm going to forget some of these things. So Brad's going to go into a number of these areas, but we established, communities of practice and advisory boards for the developers and also senior managers. We built out a technical team and rewrote brand new classifications for data analysts. We established a maturity index, which Brad will speak to, but how do you know and measure the impact of a dashboard in the business? Are they using it to change their services and improve outcomes in the community? We, of course, have some exploratory work underway, or at any given time, maybe we've done pilots with Microsoft to do some machine learning in a number of different areas. And of course, maintaining the ecosystem. People love building things, but they don't want to maintain them. Who maintains them? And technology, when we first embarked on this journey, we had a number of different technology out there. We had people using Tableau. We had some cases of Power BI. Fire department were using ClickView or ClickSense. And so when we established governance, were we going to force the organization to all consolidate and go on one? We did, with the exception of fire. They were very deep in their journey of ClickSense, so we left them alone. But they did help participate, and they continue to participate in our governance. And of course, data governance, defining standards and role-based access and who's going to do what, which we will get to in a subsequent slide. So to achieve our objective, one of the things you need to consider is what operating model are you going to support? This is, as I told you, we're quite a large organization. We're about 5,000 staff. Our team in IT is around 120 something. So it's kind of context sensitive, but what we landed on was the Center of Excellence, where we have the hub. We're going to do the bulk of the work for a number of different areas, and then the spoke. But of course, longer term, we want to see the spokes mature and become capable. So we wanted to make it more than just about data and dashboards, of course. And in the center, we help define those data standards and develop standards. And in an ideal world, there'll be a lot of self-serve layers. We develop training and best practices, not about the tools. We leave all the tool skill set upskilling to Microsoft, and we point people there. So Brad's going to speak about that. We integrate with enterprise systems. We don't let the business, like in planning, go and integrate with our land development system. They might get a data export and build on that, but then we might take it back and integrate it back with the systems. We, the hub, would build the more complex dashboards or partner with an outside vendor to help aid in that journey. And of course, there's some areas that just don't have the capacity or skill set to do anything on their own, like in HR. So we will always do the bulk of the work for HR. So that is part of our role there. I'm going to pass it over to Brad to walk us through the next components of our capabilities. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Sean. So yeah, after we figured out our operating model, the next step for us was to figure out what our strategy is. Any good strategy is an inclusive process. We had the whole D3M team come together, conducted a series of workshops over a 3 to 4 week period, flushing out all the ideas. In D3M, there's no shortage of opportunities. What are the opportunities that we really want to seize upon? We took that and then reviewed it with the business, made some tweaks, and then the output of that is what you see on the screen right now. So these are about the 12 focus areas that we find important for us to focus on. We're trying to achieve that center objective there of creating a data-oriented organization. We're not going to be able to go through each of these 12 items in any detail. I think we're going to go through about 4 or 5, but we're just going to cut the surface there and show some interesting, unique components associated with it. But if you want more information, please reach out to me, because there's a lot of details below this of all the action items and activities that we've got planned for this space. So the first area we wanted to talk about a little bit was about governance, specifically about prioritization. There's no shortage of demand for dashboards in the city of Surrey, which is a great spot to be in. But like many of you, we don't have all the resources to meet that demand. So we've need to do some sort of prioritization. And a lot of times prioritization comes down to cost benefit. But for us, because we're trying to create that data-oriented organization, we're looking at some unique metrics. We look at the number of users that are going to use that dashboard. We look at how those users are spread out throughout the organization. Is it just one business unit or multiple business units? We look at something called D3M proficiency, and essentially what we're trying to highlight there is, as Sean talked about, the hub-spoke model that we've chosen to adopt. Is that business unit going to be able to maintain that dashboard after we create it? If so, that's a more attractive value proposition for us. And then we look at the more standard stuff about how is it tied to strategy and complexity of the solution overall. Sensitive. Next up would be a build approach. So this is about how we build our dashboards and what's unique there. From a hub perspective, so that's what we're responsible for. Dedicated resources, and I think that's key. We've heard it through other teams as well. When you've got that product, make sure you've got the dedicated resources, allow the high-performing team to form, just the relationship. And we've got a fantastic D3M team. I can't say enough about them. The next is agile development. So, don't want to get a debate about small A, big A kind of development, but it's an iterative process where developers are interacting directly with the business. We're constantly showing them a prototype of a dashboard and then go take the feedback and continue to build upon it. No business unit knows exactly what they want this dashboard to turn out, so you really need that iterative approach associated with it. Next, I wanted to highlight training. I think there's two components here. So there's the technical training. I don't think there's any surprise. In this space, there's a lot of technology that needs to be understood. It's rapidly evolving, so we need to invest in that space. But it's the second one there about business operations that I wanted to highlight. This group, we try as much as possible whenever we're creating a dashboard to take that team and implant them into the business for a half day or a full day so they can actually understand what this business unit is trying to achieve. They can understand their pain points. They can actually understand all the data that they're seeing in the database. How's it actually represented in the real world? And most importantly, it allows them to start to form relationships, which comes in very handy as you start to build those dashboards with them. So that has been a great investment in time. From a spoke perspective, so those are the business units that build out their dashboards. They're free to build however they choose. We typically just support them. They're able to take anything that we have, but we support them in typically putting data into the data warehouse or whatever repository that they can access it in. And then just wanted to highlight too, we still have third parties. We started our journey with third parties and there's still a home for them. We use them for specialized work, as well as anything in the backlog we just think is more appropriate for them to tackle. I want to highlight training. Sean mentioned that earlier on. We wanted to have a good, strong business level training. And when we went out to the market, we really couldn't find anything that met our needs. As much as possible, always try to find something that exists out there to begin with, but in this situation, there wasn't. So this is a homegrown course. It's the most popular course in the city of Surrey in 2022. I'm assuming we're going to finish 2023 in the same boat. We had some really good feedback in here. And it's all about the process. It's tool agnostic, so it's all of the groundwork. So we start off with our strategy, then you go ask your questions that you want to analyze, so again, to avoid analysis paralysis. You go out and gather your data, so we're teaching them about data quality, teaching them how to capture your own data if you need to do it in the survey form, analyzing. This is where you get into statistics, insights. That's where we introduce them to best practices and visualizations, when should you use each visualization. Presenting, how to use storytelling to actually give a meaningful story with data rather than just boring someone with facts and figures. And then the last, I think which is the most important with D3M, it's about incorporating some sort of learning. It's not the dashboard. That's not the end of the journey. It's about making a change, a meaningful change to your particular business unit. So that's often offered monthly. And again, you can take all of our training materials. From a technical perspective, we use Microsoft Dashboard in a day. It's free, it checks all of our boxes, it's really good training, so we didn't bother to build upon that. Next up is D3M community. So again, in that hub-spoke model, we want to make sure that those spokes have an opportunity to engage with each other and learn from each other. So we set up these two communities, or two forums. You can think of one as kind of like business level or manager level, and the other is more kind of the technical units throughout the business areas. So we stood up these forums, and we got them ball rolling, and now they're both self-sufficient. And we attend as a participant, so we can make sure that we're still engaged in that process, but it's great to see that they're just driving forward with it. And you can see some of the topics there. They're talking about best practices, common problems across there. But it's great, really important to make sure that those folks have that opportunity to interact with each other. And then the last area that I wanted to touch on before we show a couple of dashboards is just how do we know our dashboards are having the impact that we want? And we assess that in two different ways. At a dashboard level, we send out this survey that happens about 90 days after the dashboard is delivered to the business unit. And we're asking them several questions. Is the dashboard having the intended impact? The next question is probably the most important. Has this dashboard been baked into your regular operations? So if it's not baked into their operation, you're obviously going to have some decline overall. And then we have this last open-ended question about what's your next step in your data journey. And again, we want the organization to continue to mature, and that's kind of our opportunity to open the door for that, which is a next segue into our maturity model. This is how we assess the program overall, or D3M from an enterprise perspective. And when we created this, there was a lot of maturity models out there in the market. None seemed to fit perfectly for us, so this is more of a cut and paste exercise to make things work for us. Just highlight that what's kind of unique on this one is the cultural aspect of it. That's kind of the reflection of our success back into the business. If we're successful, we should see certain behaviors being reflected in the business. So I'll talk a little bit about that on this slide. But that maturity model, those 6 areas then gets broken down into categories and subcategories, and then what you don't see is all the questions and the criteria. So business units can score themselves they're at this level, but then also have the awareness of what they need to do to get to that next level. And you can see some of those culture items there talks about leadership. So are leaders talking about data analytics or not? Are people being recognized for data analytics throughout the organization? So again, those are those behaviors that we want to see throughout the organization. So we're just going to quickly go through some of the dashboards just to get a sense of what's been delivered. And for the sake of time, I'll just go for the first 2 here. This one is the one we created for an animal resource center. So this is one where we engaged the business unit for something completely different, and I was asking them questions. Well, how many animals do you have in the facility? Is it increasing or decreasing? And they didn't have the answers to that. So from a maturity perspective, they were very basic. They wanted to have those answers, but just the systems didn't allow for it. So we created this dashboard, gives them all that visibility. It also gives them the various triggers or levers that they can pull to be able to, get animals back into loving homes throughout the community. And then the next one I'll cover off here is a finance dashboard. Finance, the great news is they're very analytical, so they're very engaged. The problem with finance people is they also love Excel and have all of their data in different spreadsheets. So this is an exercise about consolidating that information, making sure that the financial analyst is spending time analyzing the data and not cobbling together a whole bunch of data associated with it. With that, I'll pass it on to Sean to go through the last couple.
Here's an example of a basic dashboard that can have an impact. Example of the hub developed this report for our telecom team, another team in IT, to give them insights into how users were consuming their cell phone services. And this, in the end, helped us reduce costs by identifying inactive accounts, like no activity for 3 months, excessive data consumption, even if when you exceed our data pool, of course. And if there's an excessive spend, typically from roaming charges or subscriptions. And if not work-related, staff were asked to reimburse the city. So this would be a lagging report. What happened? And one of our intents, of course, is to move the organization from lagging reports, moving towards leading reports. And an example of the hub building something for the spoke. Our next slide. Thank you. Here's an example of a spoke creating a dashboard. I chose all the IT ones because there's an IT audience. Example of a spoke creating a basic dashboard. This is our operations team. They wanted some insights into Azure cost consumption. And that number is right. We are at 436,000 back in 2022. This is going crazy. So how do we get back on track? What is on track? We're not sure. But the D3M program itself is increasing consumption in Azure. But this is an insight. And again, a lagging report. Next. Here's an example of the spoke creating a more advanced dashboard. This is our traffic team in Transportation Division with only a very minimal high-level support from the hub. And this dashboard provides a summarized view of the collision information from traffic camera data. They can glean important information looking at time of day, week, type of crash, left turn, right turn, pedestrian or car, and what those intersections were. And then we can use this information to inform better traffic management in our traffic management center. This is a better example of a leading report. So some of this information, there's another add-on to this where it tells us what is likely to happen, which increasingly is where we want to go. And as an organization, we want to take these insights from lagging to leading and then to start automate some of those decisions. So for example, if you start to see that there's regular collisions at a particular intersection on a Thursday night every third week, it's largely when we go look at it, and then we look to see that there was a theater performance coming out and people get out and there's a lot of collisions at one of our major intersections on King George. Well, they now have automated that. So on Thursday nights, we do preemptively extend right turn signal. So this is an example of just where we're trying to get this organization where they've taken insights and they have incorporated that and changed their business. I think that's all for the dashboards. So thank you very much. We just wanted to share this with you. We're pretty happy where we are at in terms of this journey, but by no means are we finished. A large part of the focus now will be on the maturity model and bringing back those self-reported assessment of their respective departments, divisions, sections, and bringing it back up to senior management level, and then kind of not shame them, but try to show where we're seeing some departments really accelerate comparative to other departments. Our fire department, for example, very far down the road in terms of leveraging the insights to change their business. So again, we're open to sharing any of our content with you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.